Okay, so I am back with Jim Wollbrinck, and like I said before, he's a reoccurring guest on my podcast and on my video vlog. So I want to welcome him back. We just came back from ACE24 that was in California, or Anaheim, California, just down the street from me. Kind of a ways for Jim, but boy, was it a great convention, wasn't it, Jim?
Oh, it was fantastic. I didn't attend too many of the sessions, but I took the opportunity to spend a lot of time in the exhibit hall. A lot of great products, uh, well put together. I couldn't say enough about how well they did the exhibit hall.
Yeah, it seemed to me because I went to Toronto last year and it just seemed like this one was a lot more buzz. It seemed like the exhibits, they were telling me like 98% full, over 95%, I believe what it was. So it felt like we were back to like 2019 levels before COVID.
Yeah,
What do you think?
yeah. I didn't attend Toronto, but I'd been to the Anaheim previously, and I think this one was a better exhibit hall. And I think
Yeah.
there's just a lot going on in the water industry and technology and modernization of networks and so forth. Uh, the two committees that I participate in, both one at the national level is their Security and Emergency Planning Committee, and
Mhm.
then the at the local section level, the Cal Nevada section, your Security and Emergency Management Committee, which I've been a part of since, boy, 2004 timeframe,
Yeah.
and the new technologies, which has had its ups and downs, but right now has got a great team behind it. And so being able to leverage what I was able to find in the exhibit hall for both committees, some great products on the security and emergency management side, but also some unique new technologies that fit into both. So the two committees going forward, being able to partner on some presentations and so forth. And I think for you, being able to potentially get some of these companies and these unique products
Mhm.
into the podcast could be fantastic for your listeners.
Yeah, that's my next goal is to get some of the people I met at ACE on my show. So looking forward to that. Also, I've learned something too as being as an exhibitor, how important it is to have something that people can touch. Because I would always bring pictures, images, brochures, you know. This time I actually had a setup, like physical setup of my above the ground piping system, and everybody was touching it. People were taking it apart, and I didn't realize how effective that was going to be. So it was pretty great to see, like, people kind of excited about your product, so that was kind of cool. But everybody there had huge exhibits. I mean, I feel like a lot of companies, they kind of doubled down on the largeness of the show, I guess you could say. I went double the size. I know a few smaller companies, they went bigger. So it's just amazing how it just seems like our economy is, rolling on all cylinders, so to speak. So it was really nice to see. That's my point.
Yeah, no, and I think you hit it perfect with especially with your product. I mean, I've known that product even before you were a part of it.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
early days at San Jose Water,
yeah.
my previous boss, Rich Dreyer, was one that helped to design and come up with the manifold system so that you could lay the hose out, make those cuts in the right spot, put a
Hmm.
service connection in, and serve a customer in an emergency situation. And we used it several times. It's
Great, great.
so again, I think you're right. Having the product there so that potential customer can walk up. Here's how you put it together. Here's how the flanges fit with the pipe. Here's how the service would connect. So they get that real time feel
Hmm.
for how easy it is to use a product. And
Yeah.
you're right. I saw that on several of them. One of them was the HDPE pipe, where they
Mhm.
actually had they had the machine in there taking the pipe, cutting it, milling it,
Yeah, yeah.
welding it, and it just,
It's
again,
crazy. It's crazy what they do. It's like
yeah.
they bring the manufacturer to the to the exhibit, it's crazy.
The
Um,
big vac trucks that were there, they had the vac on type truck there,
yeah,
for some demonstration. I think that company, I can't remember the name of that one, but they were the ones that were giving out the hat that everybody was
yeah,
looking for, the straw hat that
yeah.
summertime. Yeah, just some neat products, neat giveaways. Just overall, the exhibit hall, I think, was a big hit.
Yeah, it was. And I gave a small session in Jim was the moderator, and it went really well. I thought it went really well. There was almost somebody that stood up and said, "Hey, we have lay flat hose. We use it for emergencies." And then Jim later kind of went in and said how important it was to Cal Warren and how it's going to be resource type, which I kind of mentioned, but I like that you went into that deeper because I can't speak to it like the way you can because you're the chair. Oh, you're still the chair of Cal Warren, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
for
you're the chair
another
of the room.
6 months or so.
Yeah, so I'm really happy that you did that just because you sometimes you get lost in your notes and you forget like there's a bigger picture out there. There's a community of people who have it. So anyway, great session. And I wanted to ask you more about, what did you pick up from our track, our security and emergency you know, planning management aside, what did what did you feel like was more the highlights of our track?
I think it was one, just the quality of the presentations. I think everybody did a good job. The one on earthquake early warning, which mixing the emergency management perspective of that and the new technology role that can play. A lot of utilities to me, and I've been working on that one since 2007. I attended a session near Stanford where they were talking about earthquake early warning, and the ability to use that and then get that into some sort of a system that's networked so that, for instance, our Southern California utilities, if it's at the southern end of the San Andreas Fault, well, if you're up towards the North LA or the refinery area and you get 30 to upwards of 45 to 50 seconds, you just think about, just sit and time it out and think of all the things that you can do with that much time to have that early warning that the big shaking is coming, and
Mhm.
being able to notify crews that might be in a hole working on fixing a main, or somebody up on a man lift that's working on some electrical or something. Um, a multi-story building that has an elevator, and that elevator goes to the very next floor. Doors open up so that you don't have anybody stuck. The
Mhm.
life safety aspects of that are huge. And then in the emergency management world, we don't really think about all of the aftershocks, but every earthquake, especially one that's significant, like a 7.8 for the Southern California event, or 7.2 like in Northern California, you're going to have multiple aftershocks that are 6+.
Yeah.
And you don't want somebody in a hole, or if they are, you want to give them as much warning as possible to be able to get out and get to a
Mhm.
safe location. So that technology and pairing that with radio and SCADA and other technologies, huge benefits for the water sector and anybody that really needs that early warning. Hospitals, I mean, think about what you could do with it, getting that signal into a hospital and letting a surgeon know that, hey, the shaking's going to start happening. Let's, whatever we need to do to protect this patient, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, that was one. And then that jumping into your presentation, which, yeah, in some cases, there's some technology out there. I'm working with one company he's a professor from the Colorado area. He's come up with a way to take your main information, you put that into a spreadsheet, and it runs through a scenario with a shake cast, and it comes out 70% accurate for the size, type, and quantity of leaks that a utility could experience.
Wow.
So you take that and use that as not only one, you got the early warning, okay, great, but now if you have a good predictor of roughly what kind of main leaks you can experience and the quantity, you can start looking at, well, either I purchase the material now or at least come up with a scenario, and how would I handle if I went from, I don't know, say 5 leaks a day to 150 leaks in that one day or more. So there's a lot in that technology area, and then being able to take that data and put it in a model where you can map those leaks. We've done it. It's not as accurate as size and type, which is about 70% accurate, but taking that and being able to use that for an exercise where now you have actual leaks on a map that your water operations people are going to have to deal with. Fantastic. And then
And
that
it,
led into the afternoon sessions where
Mhm.
we talked about emergency fuel planning and dam surveillance using LiDAR, video, and drone technology along with Civil Air Patrol. So a lot of great things. And again, all of those I think would make fantastic podcasts for you in
Yeah.
the future.
Yeah, maybe you can give me an introduction to some people and we'll have them on.
Yeah.
Maybe you can come on as well. But anyway, I went to your emergency planning session. Part of it, I couldn't go to the whole thing, but I didn't realize in your presentation how much water they use. They used lots and
Yes.
lots of water. And I think another point you said is once they make it, they have to ship it off to the gas tankers. And then if the pipelines are gone, you had another scenario. I forget what it was. Can you talk about that a little bit? How that scenario?
Sure. Yeah, and all of this came from a lot of work that we did in 2014. It was one of the Cal Nevada sections conferences, spring conferences
Yes,
before
yes.
the next year's ACE that was held in
Mm.
Anaheim in 2015. So we took information that we brought in the refineries, and that had been the first time that had happened.
That must
Kinder
have been hard.
has the pipelines, and then at that time it was called the CIOMA, the California Independent Oil Marketers Association. They now are called, boy, the California Fuels and Convenience Alliance, because so many gas
Mm,
stations and fuel dispensary locations have convenience stores as a part of
mm. Okay.
the business model. So they've combined the two. But every one of those shiny trucks that's driving down the road that you see carrying fuel someplace, whether it's to a gas station or to a corporate yard for a municipality or a utility, they're the ones that really kind of get that last mile. And
Mhm.
so bringing them together, and yes, that was one of the big things that we learned, that I just didn't know how much water was used to
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
refining oil into gasoline and diesel. Excuse me. And we're talking billions and billions of gallons a year. So it's
Jesus.
not
Wow.
insignificant. And from a water utility perspective, there's that interconnection that if the utility system is down because they're having leaks and they can't supply water to the refinery, well, the refinery's not going to be able to refine fuel, but the water utility needs fuel to man all of for all of
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
echoes, trucks, and people
Right.
that are responding. So that
Yeah.
interconnection, we really need to, one, as water utilities, take that to heart and start working on emergency fuel planning so that if the event happens, how much fuel do we really need? Because if you're going from an 8-hour operation now, all of a sudden you're up to 24 hours a day.
Mm.
How much fuel do you need? And you've got to request it from somebody. Usually it's at the county level. So that is one of the areas that we're focusing on, is that emergency fuel plan at the county level, to make sure that they understand the importance of water, that it's in there with hospitals and emergency operations centers, police, fire, and jails, and what have you. Any other critical infrastructure, they need to be a part of it. So that
Is
is, go
I have a
ahead.
question. So if something goes down, we have a massive earthquake, you can't get water to the refineries. What is the emergency plan for that? Do they store more? Do they, I mean, that's the only thing I could think of, right? They build some inventory and store emergency storage. Is that the plan?
Yeah, with the limited visibility I've had on some of the state plans, and there's really not much at the California level.
Mm,
Washington and Oregon have done a pretty good job of planning at that state, almost to the county level. But my understanding is they would be looking at barging fuel in from Washington and Oregon and bringing that down. So you've got some refineries in the Washington area. They could barge that down, but we know from all of the studies, all of our ports are built on liquefiable soil. So is that port going to be operational? And if it isn't,
mm,
what is it going to take to get fuel from those barges to some point to be able to be delivered? That I don't know. And then all of the fuel coming from the east, from some fuel could come potentially from the Vegas area, because there's some refineries up in Utah. But I think Vegas is going to need that fuel for
yeah.
any materials and equipment and vehicles bringing supplies in to the affected area. So I don't know. There is some pipeline transmission from the Phoenix and Arizona area, and that comes from New Mexico and Texas. But that's going to get to where the rupture is on the San Andreas Fault. And then how do you cross it? So there's a lot of planning, I think, that really could take place at the state and local level that would help in that distribution process, or is really almost mandatory in that distribution process. But the utility itself does need to know how much fuel to request, and they can figure that out. A good emergency fuel plan would allow them to do that.
Oh, okay. So that is that the goal, is to make them have an emergency fuel plan in advance, so they say like, hey, this is what we need to survive for a week, or
Yeah.
is it more on the refineries to store up? Yeah, what's the ultimate goal of this?
All of previous events, so for instance, Superstorm Sandy, they were getting fuel trucked in and moved into the area.
Hmm.
They couldn't get that last mile figured out, that fuel trucks would stop. And then now where do you take it? And partially because they didn't know how much fuel they needed in particular locations. And they didn't have that last mile distribution figured out. That's where I think the focus has to be. At least I'm looking at it local, from the California perspective,
Yeah,
my
right.
state. And others, I think, would look at it the same way. But if the fuel can come in from the feds in some form or fashion, now where do you put it? My thought is you kind of do a hub and spoke, and you take it to certain locations where trucks can then either come in and get fuel, or it can be distributed out to generators for hospitals, water utilities, cellular, so on and so
Police,
forth.
yeah,
Yeah,
police,
but you got to
fire,
have that plan in place.
yeah. Wow, interesting
Yeah.
stuff. Interesting that we don't really talk. They haven't really talked about this really. That's amazing
Yeah,
that they.
yeah, we've talked a little bit about it for 10 years now, and it just doesn't seem to get that
Mm,
I guess momentum or desire from the all those involved. It's like water. You talk to anybody about an emergency event, and they just assume water is going to be there. Yeah, they think power is going to go out. Might think that they're going to have cellular in some form or fashion, at least for texting.
mm,
But water, because most of it's gravity fed, they just think it's gonna be there, and it will, until generators stop running and
yeah.
you're unable to pump that water.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so I wanted to move on, if you don't mind, to the next
Sure.
subject. I think you had a dam project session as well. Did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, yeah, that was it was well attended. I think we had upwards of 50 or 60 people there at the
Wow.
the peak of it. Basically, the methodology that we're looking at, and it's still in its infancy, but it would be using Civil Air Patrol with cameras mounted on the plane to be able to fly over a dam, get some good images, and
Hmm.
then fly over an emergency operations center, whether it's the utility or the county, or that has to be worked out. But then download those images electronically so that somebody can take a look at it. Dams tend to be in those higher mountainous areas and are difficult to get to after a major earthquake or some sort of an event. So being able to get there as quick as possible can be a challenge if you're trying to drive or something of that nature. Can use an example of, one of the water utilities in Santa Clara County after the Loma Prieta. They couldn't get somebody up to the dam because there were landslides all along the way. The
Wow.
rupture happened within a couple miles. And so it took out a lot of the roads trying to get to that location. Well, you've got to get eyes on it in some form or fashion. The Civil Air Patrol has expressed interest because right now their major role in some sort of an event tends to be a downed plane or somebody missing somewhere. And so they don't get the chance to exercise as much. California has put some regulations in place that require dam owners to update their dam response plan every year, and they all have to have inundation maps so that they know which citizens are going to be and communities are going to be affected. But this can be a real tool for them. One, because the Civil Air Patrol it's kind of like a wing of the Air Force. So they are going to have the ability through Cal OES, California Office of Emergency Services, to be able to have pre-subscribed missions and get up in the air.
Mm.
Plus, if this can be used as part of a utility that owns a dam, their exercise program, whether it's once a year, once every couple of years, well, that's going to give the Civil Air Patrol a chance to exercise on something different. And so there's a lot of good work being put into getting this finalized. We've done several flights. A couple of them have been done by drones where they've actually put LiDAR across the dam so that they can really get that topography. That can then be changed into a engineering drawing so that they can really calculate how many tons, how many cubic yards of soil maybe have shifted, sloughed, or bulged out. So that is a key component. So you get the eyes on it first. If you see something, then you can go ahead and get the drones up there with LiDAR and get your intelligence about what might be happening with that dam, positive or negative. And that way you can coordinate much better with all the kind of concerned citizens and communities downstream. So it's got a lot of potential.
Wow. Every time I talk to you, I get kind of scared. I mean, thinking of a dam breaking is just so scary. That's.
One just broke up in the Minnesota area.
Oh, okay. I think I heard about
And
it. Yeah.
yeah, and it's on a river, so I don't know a whole lot about it.
Hmm.
Didn't look to me like it was a real big dam, but it
Hmm.
was enough that as it broke along the one, I think it was like the east bank of the river, it took out one or two houses, just collapsed all the soil, and the house just dropped right into the water and floated downstream. Uh,
Wow.
so there's a lot of them. A lot of those structures are older. They've been around for quite a while. Um,
Yeah.
so
So
I think it's a good program to look at.
yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because how you said they're older. So I was raised in
Yeah.
Los Angeles and I was raised in like Pico Rivera. If you know the area, it's like Montebello, Pico Rivera. That's where I was raised. We used to live right by a huge dam. Like it's not a huge dam, but it's pretty big, and it was made in the 50s, right after the war, the Second World War. And now the Army Corps of Engineers are going to rebuild that whole dam because they say it's very old. If a flood does come, they said a flood hasn't come there in 100 years. But I didn't realize that me and my family, we lived in a flood zone. I had no idea. But we're talking like all from I think it's Pico Rivera all the way down to Downey, Southgate, Long Beach would all be wiped out if there was a
Mhm.
flood, if that dam broke. So it's serious stuff.
Yeah, if you have a chance, look up the arc storm scenario.
Hmm.
Now, if you heard it, and it's called arc storm for A for atmospheric, R for river, small k, and then storm. So arc
Okay.
storm scenario. They're in the process of doing a new one. It's called Arc Storm 2. But in the original Arc Storm, it was based on sometime in the 1800s that they had two atmospheric rivers, one that hit Northern California, flooded Sacramento, where it was under 10 feet of water. They didn't have the levee system that they have now.
Wow.
But also in Southern California, the Santa Ana River changed course like 2 or 3 miles.
Wow.
It just over its banks routed a new course, and so yeah,
Jeez.
it can happen.
Yeah. People forget though, people forget and they think, oh, it's never gonna happen. But yeah,
Yeah,
anything can happen, like you said. So
yeah. We see it in our time. We don't see it in geologic time,
yeah.
which is much bigger.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about your let's see, we talked about your dam project. I know there was a cybersecurity one that Kevin did. I couldn't make it. Did you go to that one?
I did not. I was part of the group that helped. I know Kevin Morley did his,
Yeah.
um, and I did not hear that. Again, that could be another podcast for another time. Just a recap on that. The
Mhm.
security, excuse me, the new technology committee did one called artificial intelligence, or AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think they had close to 100 people
Wow.
attend. And they had some researchers, they had some water utilities talking about not only the good things that can happen with AI, and there is a lot out there. AI can be very beneficial. The problem is, just like when the internet was developed, everyone looked at it as, wow, this huge positive. Now look at
Mhm.
all the cybersecurity concerns
Yeah.
that we
Hmm.
have. AI is going to be the exact same. There's the
Hmm.
good part about it, then some bad, and then some really ugly. And so they looked at all aspects of that. And I heard that it got great reviews. I wasn't able to attend it, but talking to the committee members, they said they got a great review, great questions, and was well received.
Well, so what is the good of AI and what is the bad of AI when it comes to water?
I can give you kind of a quick example. The good is you want to do an emergency fuel plan.
Hmm.
Well, at some point, AI is going to be gathering enough information that you could say, give me an emergency fuel plan for my utility, and I need to know how much diesel, how much uh, gasoline, and what other options should I be looking at for power resiliency. And it'll scour the internet, but you can also have it internally scour your own records, say your fleet records, your purchases for fuel, and burn times on generators. And it can come back and tell you, here's how much you're going to need. So can save a lot of time and work. The bad and the ugly, if it's connected to your SCADA system, and it can help you calculate the appropriate dosage for a certain chemical, a coagulant, or a disinfectant.
Mm-hmm.
But then think of the bad side of that. Somebody is able to hack the AI in some way, and all of a sudden, instead of feeding 2 parts per million, you're feeding 2,000 parts
Oh,
per million.
wow. Yeah,
And
that
if
could be a problem.
somebody's not looking at it and verifying it, you could
Yeah.
have significant safety issue
Wow.
there.
Yeah. So it's almost like you have to double check someone's work. So why even have it, I guess?
Yeah, again, I mean, look how we rely on SCADA
Yeah.
to run our systems. It's taken us from having a utility. I know one utility probably would have to have maybe 40 to 60 operators a day. And right now they can run it with about 8.
Sheesh.
That's a big savings, but
Yeah.
there's security, the cybersecurity side of that. So yeah, it's so new and in its infancy. I don't think we really know all the
No,
benefits,
no.
but it's incumbent upon utilities to look for those benefits, but also how can that benefit become a weakness?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, I didn't realize AI was even, a thing in water now. I just thought it was more on the administrative side, sales marketing. I didn't realize water was, well, it's everywhere now.
Yeah,
You can't avoid it.
and to some extent, I think it's a catchphrase.
Yeah.
Because really in certain areas, AI has been around for a while. So for instance, if you want to look at water modeling uses a tremendous amount of computer power, but it's
Hmm.
looking at where water is used, how to get it there most efficiently. If there's a break, what would that mean for supply to a set of zones and something of that nature? So water modeling really is, in a way, a form of AI. It's just now it's got a significant term.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Um, Anything else I'm missing from the sessions you want to put in? I mean, or
Yeah, like I said,
interested?
I was spending so much time in the exhibit hall and then the
Mm,
sessions that I was a part of. I really didn't have a chance to attend a lot of the sessions, plus just some of the great networking. And I think that doesn't get as much visibility by the utilities.
mm.
But getting your people to those conferences and having them network with their peers, with
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
utilities, that's where I mean, I saw people. I retired 2 years ago, and
Mm.
um, a lot of the names and faces that I had seen so many times, got a real chance to reconnect
That's
with them.
nice. That's
So,
nice.
and then just met a whole bunch of new people. And it's interesting, you go to the exhibit hall and you see something that may look interesting, like when I went to one of the pipe manufacturers and they had this whole setup, and just walking up and saying, "Hey, everybody's got their spiel. Tell me about your product." And
Hmm.
boy, then you just get the information. In some cases, perfect. I can see how this can be used in emergency management. Okay, get my contact information for that person to reach out. And maybe if we have time, I can kind of go over some of the technologies that I saw out there that we really need to take a look at. I think you and I could do some great podcasts with some of these companies.
Okay. Yeah. If you want to highlight some, we have some time. We've got some time.
Yeah, there were a couple. One was a pipe manufacturer that they have a kind of a ball and joint type system.
Hmm.
There's one I can't remember. I think it's called EBA iron that connects to tanks. But this is a system that can be in the ground. So if you have to deflect around a tree or around something, you've got like 15 degrees of deflection. So
Hmm.
moving it around an object is pretty easy with a few lengths of pipe. So that was pretty good. plus just that movement when you've got earth movement and you need some way to oscillate some pipe. When it's rigid, you're not going to be able to do it. But this had a lot of potential. So you got some information on that one. Another one, company that is using kind of like a sonic technology that you put this apparatus on a valve that is frozen. That's, you can't open it, you can't close it, mainly can't close it, but it sends a sonic wave through the valve stem, breaks up the rust that's keeping that frozen, and it slowly works until you can work that valve. But I mean, you think about broken valves, the amount of money that it takes to replace that broken valve. Not only do you have to buy a new valve, and the bigger they are, the more expensive they are.
Yeah, yeah.
And the excavation, the compaction, once you put everything back together, the paving or concrete. I mean, you're talking in some cases tens, if not, 50 to boy, $150,000 in some cases, depending on the
Wow.
size. If you can use this device, and they said 100% success rate so far. I mean, that is money in the bank for a water utility. So that's one to take a look at. Another that I found was technology that I've been looking for, and it seems like it's now coming of age. There was a company called Noke, Noke, but think about it, no key, like no regular key.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
locks that are Bluetooth. And
What type of locks?
pardon?
What type of locks?
A padlock, so something that you would use on a gate or an
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
Anaheim or an MCC. The nice part about that product is using Bluetooth. One, it's encrypted. Two, you don't have to worry about somebody losing a key. That is
Oh,
one of the huge problems at a utility is you've got
really?
a security system. You have 50,000 locks out at all your stations, and
Wow.
somebody loses a key.
Wow,
Now,
wow.
anybody has access to that. This way, there are locks that have a coded key, but then you have to go to the lock and recode it to not recognize that electronic key. It's better than a physical key. But this is Bluetooth technology, and now there's another, it's like near frequency or again, got their information. They're going to get them on the phone and learn more about it, because think about it, you've got a cellular contractor needs to get into a station. You either got to get an operator out there to open it for them, or if you can verify who they are and be able to give them a one-time code via Bluetooth. Now they walk up to the gate, they open it, do their thing, and come out and lock it. And you've got a record of when it was opened and when it was locked.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so, the advantages are huge. Another technology is just key management. There's companies that have these boxes that you swipe your card, it opens up, you have access to certain keys inside, you hit the button, it checks that key out to you. Now you know who checked a key out at what time. My previous employer, we did this. We went, it was amazing to see how the drop in I don't know if you want to call it unidentified vehicle accidents. So
Oh,
somebody backed into something, somebody did, well, you didn't know who checked it out. And if they didn't do their vehicle walk around, sorry, not me, I don't know.
oh,
With
wow.
checking the key out, you have to check the key out, you do your vehicle walk around. If that vehicle was damaged by somebody else, and you didn't do the walk around, but then you drove back in and the next person did the walk around and identified it, guess what? You own it.
Wow.
So it really forced staff to do the vehicle checks to make sure that they didn't get hit with with someone else's accident.
Wow.
And
So somebody who just backs up accidentally, doesn't notice, is parked somewhere, somebody hits you and you just don't notice and you bring it back to the yard. And then the next person gets blamed for it. And it avoids that,
it
right?
avoids that because you're supposed to do a walk around
Okay.
when you check out the vehicle and walk around when you turn it back in.
Every day they're supposed to do that?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there's some systems out there where you get a little, and I don't know a lot about these. The vehicles departments usually are aware, but it's a little handheld device, and I think you might
Hmm.
even be able to do it off your phone. But you take the device, and there's little fobs on corners of the truck, and you just touch it, and you've walked around, and it says, "Okay, you hit every part of the truck." Now, if you didn't look at it, and there's some sort of damage there, again, you own it.
Wow,
Yeah.
man.
So
So many things.
yeah, so
Yeah.
key tracking is critical. The padlock, I think, is just fantastic because that frees up a lot of staff that has to always go out and open up gates for contractors, gardeners, whomever. Plus, anything that happens out there, you know who's been out there and when. With a normal padlock, you have no idea. So there's a
Wow.
lot of huge advantages there. So I think there's some that I'm going to be looking into, get more information on, and I think your listeners would really get a lot out of it as well.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely have some scheduling to do, that's for sure. All right, so we're getting close to ending this off, but there's a few things I want to touch on. What do you, I'm not complaining about ACE, okay? So don't think that by this comment I'm complaining about ACE at all. But what this is one thing I think they can improve on and then you touched on it before is networking. They got to get away where utilities and exhibitors, everybody who's in the business gets together and kind of mingles together because when people come to your exhibit, it's a different type of a networking. It's more like, hey, I like your product, give me some information.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're networking with everybody, it's more like you're kind of figuring how to help each other out. I guess is the best way to put it. Is there any way you think ACE could do a better job with that? What you have some ideas on that?
There's a couple. One is they've got to improve the app.
Yeah. You hate that
You know,
app.
we've worked very hard, Cal Nevada section, to improve that app, and I think it works
Yeah,
pretty good. You can connect with people.
yeah.
You
I like that
whatever
app.
contact
Yeah,
information they want to share
yeah,
with you, but you can message them. You can, hey, let's meet here. So people that you haven't seen for a while, you can connect with, or somebody that it's a product that you like, and you can go in and favorite that product so that hey, I'm going to contact them later, and they've got that information there. The app just it didn't work for me.
no, it didn't. Me neither. Yeah,
Trying to connect, I couldn't connect with people. I could put them in as my favorite, but there was no way to contact them. There was no
yeah,
information. And sometimes when they would reload or reboot, I know they did something, and all of a sudden all my favorites were gone.
yeah. I noticed it deleted all my sessions. All my sessions that I had like marked as favorite, it deleted all of them.
Yeah.
So I just got the printout and started marking stuff on the printout.
I put them in my calendar so that I
Yeah,
get a warning, alert, and have it notify me. So that's one thing. I agree, yes, with the networking. It's challenging for them because a lot of the vendors try and do events where some of their big clients, that have
yeah.
used the
I see that a
products
lot.
throughout the year, they try and do some special dinners or a game night or something. So there's those challenges. I don't know
I
if I
want to
know.
be invited to those dinners. Some of those dinners are nice, man. They go to Morton's, they go to these nice steakhouse. I wish I could be invited to those dinners.
Yeah, no,
So
that's I think just an ongoing challenge for them. I wasn't able to attend the closing get together that they did, but I heard some good things about that. So yeah,
okay.
that's there. But yeah, but there's a lot going on, and that the ACE is one of those focal points. So for instance, the emergency I can't even remember what it's called. But their emergency management committee at the national level. We've been working on the manual. It's called M19. It's the
Yeah, I know
emergency
M19. Yeah.
response um, emergency response planning manual. And it was a good chance for all of us to get together. We're very close to getting that finalized. And so it has a lot of good updates that utilities will be able to use, especially as they're going into this next round of risk and resiliency assessments for their America's Water Infrastructure Act compliance. So that was a good chance to see a lot of people that, like this, we've been online working on the manual and getting everybody, or as many as possible, in one location to discuss it, finalize, get it ready for that last push to push it over the line was great. And some people that I hadn't met before but had been working over a year on the manual with, was great to see them. There's again, it's really kind of the networking, and part of that networking is, at least for you and I, on that emergency management side, really being able to kind of actually meet, wow, that person is taller than they looked on Zoom. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're just being able to meet, shake hands, talk, build and strengthen that relationship. And really that relationship helps. I mean, there was one of the utilities that here in San Diego County Water Authority, they just sent some specific type of pipe, all the way up to Calgary because they needed it up
Oh
there.
yeah, I saw that. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, a lot of those relationships, I think, not all of them, but many of them start by meeting, one, at the committee levels, but two, at the conferences. So,
Yeah, you're right.
a great conference. Next year's, I believe, is in Denver.
Denver. Yeah.
So another good location. It'll
Yeah.
be interesting to
I'll
see.
be there.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna try and make it myself.
Okay. Yeah. So, um, one last thing, Cal Nevada, I was listening on to a Zoom meeting I think we were having, and now they want to take it down to, instead of two meetings a year, two conferences a year, one conference a year. So are we having one this fall or next spring?
There is one more this fall. It's going to be in Reno. I
Reno. Okay,
don't
that's right.
know
Right.
a lot about it.
Me
Your
neither. Yeah.
vice chair Stephen Baruch has been doing some of the
Yeah.
planning for that.
The
So Dr.
scheduling.
Baruch
Yeah.
is a good one to. He's really pushing to get some good cyber. There is some work being done with the security emergency management and new technology. They're working on a set of trainings culminating with an exercise, and potentially the fall conference will be that cyber exercise. So if you think about it, that there's like a cyber 101, small utility, somebody that has, it's an operator for a utility, doesn't know a lot about it, they can learn, take it to their organization, start coming up with a cyber response plan. Because on the internet, all utilities look the same size. They're not going to
Yeah.
care if you're a large or a small. Then there's another set of trainings that will be mainly online that will allow utilities and their staff to develop that cyber response plan. And then the final is culminating, hopefully, at the fall conference with a hybrid for those that can attend, but also those that want to attend online, to actually do a tabletop exercise and walk through a cyber attack scenario on a utility and how would they handle it.
Wow. Cool. That's
So it
cool.
could be a really, really good conference.
Okay. All right. So one last question, and for sure we're done. Okay. So how are you enjoying your, from utility life, 30 years, 30 plus years in the business, to your private, now you're in the private, you have a private company. Now you're like in my world. What is it like being, the transition? What was it like for you?
I was blessed that the utility I was with allowed me to participate in a lot of these organizations and
Hmm.
saw the value of being able to hey, we have this issue. And having that network to be able to pick up the phone and call any number of people to be able to solve a problem. I mean, from with your role in emergency management, a lot of the utilities will borrow some parts,
Yep.
lay flat hose from another, and
Yeah,
then get it
absolutely.
replaced. So, having that network and building that is critical. But now on my own, yeah, it's part of, hey, well, you're financing some of your travel yourself and so forth. Uh, and then looking for, everybody wants information for free.
Yeah.
That's no problem. But paying for it, sometimes there's all the budget
Right.
issues.
Right.
So
Right.
I've, like I said, developed some great relationships, some good things on the horizon for me. So we just have to see how things develop.
Well, I'm super happy for you, and I'm glad that you came to the right side now. You left the dark side. Now you're no, I'm just playing.
There you
Um,
go.
so tell the audience how they can reach you if they're interested in contacting you.
Sure. It's just my name, Jim dot Wollbrinck, WOLL, B as in Bob, RINCK at metasysllc.com. METISISLLC.com. Happy to talk to anybody that has the need or needs information in emergency management, business continuity, security. Those are the areas that I'm focusing in. And
Hmm.
like I've said, it's the network. If I don't have the answer, I can reach out to a lot of people like you
Hmm.
and get the information that a utility or somebody would need to be able to make the right decision.
Yeah, no, you're doing a good job. And this community is very happy that we have you. So, I'm
Well,
glad that
thank
you didn't. I'm glad once you retired, I'm glad you didn't like completely, abandon us. I'm glad you're still around. So,
it's that kind of that passion. Once you've got it, it's tough
yeah,
to
you do
get rid
have
of.
it. You do have it. That's for sure. All right, Jim, thank you for coming onto the podcast. I think we're gonna have a busy year this year because I'm gonna schedule some more people. I definitely want you back on, so we'll get together again.
Yeah, let's see what we can partner on here. I'd like to get some of the technologies that I found. Let's talk to them and see if we can get a good series of podcasts with lots of questions, maybe even pull in a
Right.
utility or two that might be
Mm,
able to add benefit on how these technologies they're using and the benefit that they're seeing.
okay, sounds good. All right,
Awesome.
thank you, Jim.
Hey, thank you. On